Hello, I'm Jess, and I'm from Enstarz, and this is...
Jordan.
What do you do, Jordan?
I eat and breathe. Sometimes I think vaguely about the universe. I'm also an actor.
Yeah.
And other things, because all actors are until they aren't.
What
Yeah.
got you into acting? Were you
Lot
always wanting to do acting?
No. No, just late stage narcissism and a crushing desire for attention, validation, and fame. No, I
What?
did not ever think I would become an actor. I was a very practical kid. If you look on my Instagram, it's at Marvelous. There's 2 L's. M-A-H-R.
We will put this in the description box.
There's a post where I went through a time capsule that I made in 4th grade.
Wow.
Thanks, Mrs. Mac Salmon. Very cool making us do that.
What was in the time capsule?
Yeah, it was a bunch of cool things, and there was a letter to myself that was who I imagined I'd be in the future. And
What
I was
did
like,
fourth
when I'm
grade you
26,
imagine?
I'm 10 years old. This is Jordan Mahr, age 10. And it's like, I am going to be the CFO of the NASDAQ stock exchange or something like that.
What?
And it's an entire, I'm not kidding, I'm 10 years old. It's an entire letter, quite well written, to be honest. If I'm being entirely honest, I think
For a 10-year-old.
grammatically intact.
Yeah. It holds up.
Yeah, I think.
Except for the content.
Better than I can write now. But the content was I know it will be it would be difficult having so much time away from my family, but I think it's important that I'm able to do a job that provides security. It was nuts. And then at one point
At
I'm
10?
like, yeah, the first paragraph it's I would really like this job because I'd be in the office alone all the time, and I'm a very shy person, so that sounds very ideal for me. It was just hilarious, reading through that.
Wow.
And seeing how far I've fallen, from where I thought I'd be.
I mean, ironically, you were
age
telling
10.
us that you had a lot of friends who were in finance.
Well,
So-
I didn't, is the thing. That's the weird thing, is you'd see that and you'd be like, oh, this kid's parents must be in finance or whatever. But no, my mom's a fashion designer, so
That's
I
cool.
didn't have that in my life at all. I didn't know finance was I had that letter and then I sort of forgot about it, and I didn't really know what finance was as an industry until I got to college, more or less, and
Yeah.
met people who actually aspired to
Do finance.
trade and yeah, I didn't know what the sell side was until sophomore or junior year of college. I didn't actually know. But yeah, I mean.
Did your parents ever give you any pressures? I know, growing up myself, my parents were very stereotypical, and they were you should either be a doctor or a lawyer, which
Sure.
neither of which I am right now.
Yes,
so, hey.
well, that's neither of which we are. So
Yeah.
sorry, parents.
Yeah.
You tried your best, didn't you?
Yeah.
There was definitely. I think it was me and my brother. He was much more STEM oriented than I was from a young age, so they wanted him to be the doctor, and they wanted me to be the lawyer because I was loud, talkative, and all my report cards said he's a pleasure to have in class, but he'll never shut up. And they were like, oh, this would be good for him. So there was definitely a bit of that, but neither of us are either of those things. So as we sort of grew older, it sort of relaxed a bit, I think.
But did they
Yeah.
support other activities? For me, the way I talk to my parents about it now is that my mom from a young age signed us up for a lot of different extracurriculars, including a lot of dance and music and stuff.
Sure.
And performance-based things. And now I'm and now you're confused as to why I enjoy performance.
But it's really
You
funny
know?
how I mean, not to be
Yeah.
not to generalize, but it is very funny how second and first generation Asian parents handle that situation.
Yeah.
It's I want my kid to
Do
know how to
everything.
do everything and express themselves artistically and musically, and then by the time they become an adult,
None of that. Throw that away.
sublimate all of those things, put them away, get a very practical job,
Yeah.
And I think to some extent it's a great idea. I think the concept in part is these are skills that I want them to have because
And
it
be
will
a
make them
well-rounded
exactly,
person.
and they'll be
Yeah.
better humans. I guess they'll be better at whatever they do.
Yeah.
Hopefully
For
something
my
very
mom's
practical and
side,
lucrative.
I know
Right.
on my mom's side, she did that because she grew up extraordinarily poor, and so
Okay.
she was even not allowed to or could not go to field trips and stuff because her family just could not afford it.
Yeah.
And so when she had kids, she was like, my kids are gonna do all of the things I could never do.
Yeah, I think there maybe is a bit of wish fulfillment
Yeah.
there too for the parents. I mean, there has to be, right? That's
Yeah.
why they come to this country to begin with.
To have a better life,
Yeah,
hopefully, for kids and stuff.
Exactly. So their kids like live a better life than they did, which
So wait,
you know, is not something that's ever lost on me.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I didn't like. I did grow up doing like some of that. I grew up playing a couple instruments. Played tennis my whole life. But yeah, and I didn't like act or anything growing up either. That wasn't a part of my life.
So when
in
did
any
the
way.
acting begin, or when was your first time trying acting?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty funny story. My aunt, she sent my mom this like newspaper casting call in like
What?
I think it was a Chinese newspaper. Basically, there's this Taiwanese playwright and director named Stan Lai.
Uh-huh.
Who's Lai Sun Chuan.
Okay.
And he's like fairly famous, I think, in Taiwan. They did in maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, I guess. They were doing this play called The Village.
Oh.
It's called Bao Dai Chuan.
Okay.
And it was like about Chinese people coming to Taiwan during Mao and like that whole experience.
Wow.
And, like, what that was like. It's a brilliant play.
Real intense subject matter too.
Yeah, yeah. And something that like all of my sort of family and family friends in Jersey and New York
Were
identified
involved?
with. No.
Oh.
So they all wound up going to see it. But yeah, so
Yeah.
this play, it's like doing the rounds in Taiwan. It's like winning all the awards. It's doing great. And they decide to do an international tour. And so they're coming through America, or East Coast to West Coast. And
Did they need like a whole new company for that?
No, but they cast like 3 roles locally everywhere they went.
Oh.
Um,
How interesting.
yeah, right? And so my aunt sends me this casting, or sends my mom this casting call. It's like, Jordan should do this. She's out of it. I'm like, what, like a junior in high school at this point? I've never acted in my life, never thought about acting.
It's
not
so
something
weird
I
that your
wanna
aunt
do.
was like, yeah.
Yeah,
you
she's like, Jordan should do this. You know, what they wanted was like a kid for one of the lead characters, so it's like multi-generational. And one of these lead characters becomes like the son of that generation, and his son, who then became me for like 3 nights, was raised in America. And so it was sort of this like, they wanted this very jarring like
Contrast.
departure where like each generation just like had all of these, like just a complete inability in some way to understand or connect with.
Yeah, resonate with each other.
And so yeah, I begrudgingly said, fine, Mom, I guess I will I'll try this out. And so they had me go in for an audition in somewhere in New York. And they were just like, yeah, just go ahead and read the lines. And I like don't know what the hell acting is, right? So I just, okay, cool. The lines, here are the lines, boom, done. And they were like, great. And I think my brother actually came along too, and so he also did the lines. And
wow.
And then I think they asked me back again, and we did it again with some of the actual actors in it. And they were like, great, you want to do this? It's like a couple weeks of rehearsal, and like you go on for a weekend, and then we go to a different city. And it was cool. It was an odd experience for sure. I had no idea what to expect, and like the company was amazing. It was so welcoming. The guy who was like playing my dad was actually just like sort of fatherly figure.
Aww.
Honestly, he's great. I just
In
the whole time I was there, because I was
outside
like,
character.
I'm this kid who's never done this before, and I'm like looking around like, what the heck is going on, and they're all like doing theater warm-ups, and now I know, but back then did not.
Yeah.
And he's like telling me about his life and how he sort of also stumbled into doing this, and it's just been his life, just being part of this theater company in Taiwan,
crazy.
traveling. Like, it's what an incredible life that
Yeah.
is. Yeah, and then we went on, and my entrance is separate, so I just sort of walk on. The rest of the people are already there, and the audience is there, and I remember just going on and going, oh, fuck.
There's people here. There's
like
people watching right
it's the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. It's fairly large. There's like thousands of people there, and I'm like, oh, okay, right.
Oh, shit.
And I just do it, and we go, and it's great, and then we do it a second, third night or something, and then yeah, apparently eventually my mom just starts getting all these texts from like family friends, or like even like relatives who didn't know I was doing this, and they're like, is that Jordan? Was that Jordan on the, was it, huh?
She was just like, no. I'm not.
And so that was, that must have been kind of a trip. So yeah, I did that, and then I still didn't think I was going to be an actor anymore. It was a cool experience. You know? I was very into like.
What was the first time where you're like, maybe this is it then?
Yeah.
This is the path.
I think I like loosely entertained the idea as like a fun fantasy for a
Yeah.
bit, like senior year of high school, maybe.
'Cause if I remember correctly, you then went to college first at another place, not Columbia, and then did
Yes.
something else.
Yes,
And then
so-
went to do acting at Columbia.
Right. So I went to Berkeley first, and I was pre-law.
So
I was
lawyer.
studying- yeah.
Lawyer time.
Yeah, exactly. I was studying political theory. I was actually very into it. Like end of high school into college, I got very, very into politics. I wound up working for my congressman. I wound up working for like the state Supreme Court in Jersey,
Wow.
Superior Court. I go to Berkeley. It's a very political place. I'm working on campaigns for local sort of elected officials, and I'm studying political theory, which is like fascinating for me. It still
Yeah.
is, honestly.
I mean, politics is super important, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I these
affects
days
you.
believe a lot less in the actual capacity of politics to change the world. But at that point, I was like, you could make real change in the world. Now, I don't necessarily think that's true, but I don't know if that's a positive or negative development as a person. I'm at Berkeley. I'm having a great time, and my roommate, one of my roommates, I've got two roommates at this point. One of my roommates and I decide, basically there's an art requirement at Berkeley. You must take some kind of art class at some point while you're there. And we had this good friend named Franny, who first semester was taking Intro to Acting as her art requirement. And we would see her for lunch like once a week after that class. And so she was always telling us about she was like, this class is like, it's a free A. It's like recess in the middle of your day, right? You just like roll around on the floor and like throw balls at each other, and like she's like, and everyone's hot. You guys should really take this class. And we're looking at each other like, that sounds like a great idea, right? Like you get a requirement out of the way, like, you know, it doesn't hurt your grades at all, and at that point we're like, man, I can't believe we have to audition for this. Like the whole reason we're taking this class is that we don't know how to act. We have no idea what it is. And we're kind of stressed about it.
Did you not tell
right?
anyone that you were in a play at some point?
Well, yeah, but I didn't actually like see it as acting. Like it
You're
had
like,
been so
"Yeah,
long
this
ago,
doesn't
and
count."
yeah, right. And so we're like, okay, what do we do? Brent goes on the internet. His name's Brent, my friend.
Shout out to Brent.
Shout out to Brent. Brent now works at Coinbase in Seattle, and I do what I do. So like, we can all see how that's worked out for me.
Good for Brent.
Good for Brent. My parents
Brent.
wish Brent was their child, but you know, what can you do? Brent's got great parents, as is. Shout out Teresa and Fred. Yeah, Teresa, if you ever see this, I still make eggs in a hole in the morning for breakfast. So there you go.
Your
changed my life.
influence has
Yes, it really
continued.
has. So we're like, all right, let's do this. Brent goes on the internet. He like looks up monologues and clicks on a link that's like monologues for 18-year-olds to whatever, and it's just like some you know, kind of garbage monologue. And I like pull if you've ever seen The Newsroom, one of my favorite shows of all time, there's that like very viral scene where Jeff Daniels just sort of like craps on America. And he's like, we're not the greatest country in the world. We're like 175th in literacy or whatever, like all kinds of things. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a great monologue. Anyway, we get in there, we do our things. We wind up in the same class. We're like, all right, let's do this. You know, same session, same teacher, whatever. Let's have fun. As it turns out, they loved his sort of garbage teen monologues for men thing. They're like, that was great. It had arc. It was a real character. They looked at me and were like, what the heck did you do that for, man? That wasn't a monologue. Like, there's no character arc there. There's no like emotion. Nothing's happening. There's no action. You're just like ranting about America. And I was like, yeah, all right, fair enough. As it turns out, one of the teachers told us a story, because I was like, I was like, you know, why did we audition at all? Like, this is sort of an intro class, right? Like, the idea is that none of us know what we're doing. And she told us a story about this kid who, like, a few years back, before us, I guess, showed up to the audition with a baseball bat. And he just sort of stood up there and was like, I don't have a monologue. My name is whatever. I don't know how to act. Thanks.
Here's my baseball
Yeah. And then he just left. And of course they took it because they're like, yeah, I mean, because it wasn't actually, it's not an audition process as in like, you know, we won't let you take a class. It's like, we just want to know if you're better than the intro class so that we should put you in a separate level. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it turns out there was no stress. But yeah, we do this class. Teacher's name is Dominique Lozano. Shout out Dominique if you see this. She's brilliant. And you know what? The testament to how great Dominique was is that she took a class of 12 people who had never acted before, right? Intro acting. And I think at least 6 of us are still actively pursuing acting as like a primary pursuit right now.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I just saw on Instagram that like one of us is doing her MFA at Columbia. I didn't know that. I had a friend who did her MFA in Paris. just now. I think she's just graduated. Um, yeah, there's like 3 or 4 more too. Like it's like well done. You know what I mean? Like out of 12 kids who like had no idea what they were gonna do and definitely didn't think they were gonna be actors, 6 of us are actually actors. Like that's a great, that's a huge success rate. Um, I mean, I don't know if we're successes yet, but like eventually it will probably be a fairly decent success rate. I know that's pretty cool, and that's a testament to like how great that class was. But yeah, that's where it happened. I took that class and like I was like, wow, like I never done anything that like so involves every part of me at once and feels like so like fulfilling, but not in like in a way that like it fills you up completely when you do it. Like I remember like playing instruments and always feeling like I'd be playing the violin and like I'd be like, well, I kind of want to sing or dance while I'm doing this. Like it's not enough, you know what I mean? Like it's all focused into this one thing that I'm not that good at. Limiting, whereas acting felt like, wow, like literally everything is at my disposal and required at all times. I'm sure I was terrible in that class. But
Was
like,
this like
that was
renewed interest then what brought you to Columbia?
sort of. It was complicated, but like there were financial reasons as well as to basically like, not long story short, when I got to Berkeley, I had a scholarship. They removed it because there's a thing passed in the assembly that UC schools can raise tuition for 2 years. All the schools dealt with that differently. Berkeley dealt with it by rescinding out-of-state aid for all out-of-state students. They didn't tell me until I got there.
Yikes.
Yeah, this is actually a serious thing.
Yeah.
The woman who passed that law in the assembly, which I do think is a great law, her name's Nancy Skinner. She was the woman I worked for.
Weird.
On her campaign to get her elected to the state senate, and we did win. So let's go. We did also win on the day Trump won, so it was a very weird day at our celebration. Yeah, so basically from the moment I got to Berkeley, they were like, hey, you owe us $30,000. We're going to drop you from all your classes. And I was like, that's not true.
No.
And it turns out it was true. So I basically knew from that moment that I would have to transfer somewhere that like
was more
would
affordable.
be willing to offer me a scholarship or some kind of aid so that I, don't wind up $300,000 in debt, especially if I'm becoming an actor. I'm never going to make any money.
Yeah.
So that was like, I knew I had to transfer anyway. And then
What a situation.
Columbia became, I wasn't like fully committed to becoming an actor, so I didn't want to do an MFA program or anything like that, or a BFA at that point.
Yeah.
I picked Columbia because it was in New York, which felt close to acting, and it's a great school.
Yeah.
I was fully intending on still studying poli-sci and English when I got to Columbia, which is what I was doing at Berkeley. I got to Columbia, and it's actually great. I get to Columbia, and first semester I'm here, you have to audition for the classes again. Once again, it's for like placement in what class you want to do. So I go up there, I do some kind of like actual monologue, and then they post the class list, and they just didn't put me in a class. And I'm like, I literally like, I had like a 40-minute existential crisis where I like sat in like outside the Minor Latham Playhouse, which is our resident theater, and I was like, wow, I'm so shit, at acting that they don't even want to teach me. They're like, this kid is hopeless. There's no reason to teach him. You know what I mean? Like, no, we're not putting him in a class. There's nothing to do with it.
That couldn't be it, was it?
That's just what I thought, which was also very odd because I had also like, I wound up doing a couple shows that semester too, and so I was like, I can't figure out whether I'm
good or not.
Yeah, what is happening here? I wind up sitting down with the head of the department who's teaching a class that I'm taking, brilliant class. His name's Bill Worthen. Shout out, Bill. And he's like, what acting class are you taking? I'm like, I didn't get into any. He's like, no, it's impossible. That's not how this works. We put everyone in an acting class.
Did they miss
if
you
they want to
somehow?
be one. Be in one. What acting class are you in? And I was like, well, I'm not in one. And we went and looked through, and he was like, wow, I'm really sorry. We just missed you. Like, we just didn't put you in one. And I was like, wow.
So maybe I'm not terrible.
Kind of helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the summer between Berkeley and Columbia, I had like this internship set up in DC, and there was this there were these like sort of Cal alum donors who were funding it, and they'd offer me a stipend and a housing thing just because I would need it to do this internship, which was like amazing of them. And the day comes to do the internship, which leave for DC, it's like July 1st or June 1st or something that I'm supposed to get on a train and go, and I just didn't get on the train because I'm from Jersey, which is fairly close to New York, and I was like, I'm just gonna walk over to the city and boom, Jordan Mahr, you know what I mean? Like, I'm in. It's not what happened, but I was like convinced that like I shouldn't go to DC. I should do this. This is what I actually want to do.
Yeah.
So I didn't go. Fairly irresponsible thing, honestly, to like make that decision so late. But yeah, I stayed in Jersey. I accomplished nothing as an actor. Turns out you can't just stroll into New York and say, "Hey, I'm an actor," and everyone's like, "Oh, we found one. We've been needing one for so long." But yeah, so like when that happened with the classes at Columbia, I was sitting there like, wow, I've just like really bungled it, haven't I?
Yeah.
Like I've just like made a terrible decision. Like I should have gone to this internship, should have stayed, doing poli-sci and but yeah, it all worked well. I wouldn't say it worked out yet, but like it's sort of worked out, I guess. And then I wound up becoming a theater major just over the course of the classes I was interested in. I kept taking more theater classes because I wanted to know more about what this was.
Mm-hmm.
I had no background in it, you know what I mean?
Right.
I wound up getting to go abroad to a conservatory in London called RADA to just do Shakespeare for a semester. And
that's
at
cool.
that point, it was an incredible opportunity, an amazing experience. And at that point, it was like, well, if you want to graduate, you're going to have to become a theater major because that's the only thing
classes
you can apply
you've been
those
doing.
credits towards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, fine. So came back. I did like 7 classes a semester, senior year to graduate. Then it was COVID.
Mm-hmm. Right, 2020.
Then like I skipped a year of my life. We did Drama High.
Yeah.
Here we are.
That's the other thing we should talk about is the reason why
Yes,
we
we've
know
probably
each
just
other.
cut everything before this.
Yeah.
And
The
just talk
backstory,
about
the Jordan
Drama
backstory.
High. So the reason we know each other is because Jess was at an MFA screenwriting program.
Yeah,
TV
for
writing
TV
program.
writing and producing at LIU Brooklyn. And our very
Yes.
first semester, we had to write and shoot a pilot. And
Right.
Jordan auditioned, and we cast him in the lead
So
actor role.
They posted this like casting call.
What brought you to actually respond?
It seemed like a cool concept, and the characters seemed kind of fun, specifically Hideo. But I also read for Ju-on at the time.
you did read for both. You know.
Yeah. No, it was just the brief was cool and it was very well put together, and I was like, this looks like people who know what they're doing. I was like, this can't possibly be written by a first year screenwriting MFA student at LIU Brooklyn. This has to be like no. Yeah, I read for that. I remember enjoying that a lot, and then
You went on a whirlwind experience.
yeah, and then
us,
you
I
guys
guess.
were like, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, all right, let's do this.
Yeah. I mean,
and it
I
was
honestly
great.
remember watching Jordan's tape for the first time, and like as soon as because I watched your Hideo tape first, and so like as soon as you walked on screen, I was like, who is this kid, and how do we secure him right away? We don't get
Great
him.
taste. That's how everyone's reaction to my tapes should be. So
Yeah.
everyone else.
I don't know. It was just
Pick
you
up
had
the,
that air already for the
Yeah.
character, which is a bit weird because like Jordan is
He
a
is a
very
dick.
lovely person.
This character is a terrible person.
But he is very good at being scary jerks, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Because you were also Mr. Darcy in our virtual
That's
play
true,
of Pride
we
and
did.
Prejudice,
We
so
did
it's
do
the
that.
same kind of.
I feel like I'm getting
Rich
typecast
jerks.
here. Jess is typecasting me. But it's fun. It's such a fun role to play, I think. I don't connect with it in a sense that like I didn't grow up in that way, in that kind of environment by any means, but like I enjoy it a lot.
I think because you get to play someone who is not like yourself in a way.
Yeah, I think, and that like is freeing in a way. And when I was in school, I had this audition for. I wound up joining a sketch comedy group called Chowder, and their audition was actually, it was really cool. It was like you get like 30 minutes in a room to yourself, make up a character completely, come in and like you're interviewed as that character, but it's comedy. And I remember, like I think my character's name was Chad, and he was just like, an asshole who's but like not like a traditional Chad. He was like a very rich sort of shitty Hideo-esque Chad.
Maybe it's just a natural thing that comes out.
Yeah, I don't know. I just for some reason it's something I connect with. I like sat down before that like interview thing and I sat down in character and I think the first thing I said, I looked at my watch and I was like, how long is this going to take? And so I sort of enjoy, I think it just feels freeing in a way that like I don't get to be in real life.
Yeah.
To be like completely unbeholden to anyone else because you are completely secure at least materially.
Yeah.
And you know, in
In who you
status-wise,
are.
in who you've been born as.
Yeah. But also Hideo thinks very highly of himself and
That's
doesn't
true
think he
too.
needs to change. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think I'm someone who has like, I like think and remember and like cringe and think about like all of my interactions,
Me
especially
too.
younger. And
I'm
like
a lot
I
like
was
that.
very aware of who I was in a space. I could like, it's like I could see myself
Yes.
while I was myself.
Yeah, I'm like that
and so
too.
to be a character who like doesn't have to do that at all, I think is really freeing.
Yeah.
And it's very, it comes out naturally, I think, just because it's like, oh, I kind of wish
Can
that
let it
that's
go. It's like
how
wish
I could
fulfillment.
occupy space in the world. And I think these days maybe I do that a little more than I used to. But yeah, I mean, growing up, definitely, I was always very aware of like how I was being perceived. And I think that makes makes it difficult to navigate the world. And also,
Yeah.
I think like it
And
puts
also
a
be
barrier
vulnerable
between you and the people you're
with
interacting
people.
with. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was your experience like overall with the project?
That was terrible. Yeah, worst that I've ever been on. It was just atrocious. No, it was great. It was COVID. I mean, it was November of 2020. So like I hadn't been on set in God knows how long. I hadn't been on a stage in God knows how long. Like, nothing was going. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And here we are on a set all of a sudden with like, you know, a decent sized crew,
Yes.
honestly, of all lovely, lovely people.
Also, the cast was super wonderful. Like, I think it was just a lovely coming together of
I
people.
agree, yeah. And it's just like everyone
shout out to
involved
Young
was
and Lex,
great. Yeah.
who we miss.
Big shout out to Young. I will
Who is
plug
doing
Young.
cool things
I
right
will
now.
plug Young, actually. If you see this, Young is a lead in a Netflix show called Beef that is about to come on.
We are very
it's him,
happy and proud
Steven
for him.
Yeun and Ali Wong. So like, this is some real deal stuff. Young is amazing. You should definitely watch that when
Such a nice person.
when that comes out. Yeah,
A very kind and
he's
warm
He's a
person.
brilliant actor. I mean, just very natural. You sort of watch him, you're like, wow, like
Also very charming.
yeah,
A very charming. Both of you are very charming people, which
You
really
hear that,
helps
Beef?
sell
Like,
the.
you got
sell the
another
thing.
you got another spot in there.
Because like in the show, you and Young's characters are both like these like hot rich boys, and I think
Right.
that both of your charismas really work for
Yeah,
that.
I think we played off well.
But also, you guys
One
have
another.
very different personalities
That's
too,
true,
and
too.
acting styles,
Mhm.
and that really complements each other too. I thought.
Yeah,
And like which
Um,
characters you were playing too.
yeah, I'd say so. But yeah, I'm very excited to watch Beef.
Yes.
You should be very excited to watch Beef as well. Don't cut this part. Cut it
Yeah.
out. But yeah, no, it was a really great experience to be back on set, and I think like everyone was just genuinely happy to be there and like excited to make a great thing.
Yeah,
I
and
think,
also
like,
because it's like an Asian American, predominantly Asian
exactly.
American crew for an Asian American
It
story.
was very cool to have like a predominantly Asian American crew, like telling Asian American, and we've talked about this before. in a s- yeah, in a separate interview. But like it was, and I'll just sort of summarize what we were saying there. But like, it felt like I didn't have to explain who I like explain being Asian in any way on this set, because we all had this understanding of what that was like, and we had this community, and we were making a show that like embraced that actively, and not in like a tokenizing way.
No.
Whereas I think on a lot of other projects, if you're one of the few people of color,
But you
there's
have to
sort of like
represent in a way.
yeah, there's sort of like a pressure to like, well, tell us what it is to not only be your character, but also to be all Asian people.
Everyone who looks
who
like
are-
you.
all people in the Asian diaspora. You know what I mean? And like, it was great to not have that on your shoulders at all. But yeah, Drama High. It's I'll pitch to you, the audience, inspired by like a series of Japanese and Korean dramas. Set in a high school environment, adapted. It's in English.
For Asian Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
In the sense that, like, because dramas are predominantly made abroad, and because of that, I think the concerns that characters have might be a little bit different.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I wanted the characters, because I also wrote it, I also acted it.
This is
Like,
true.
I wanted to kind of be able to show a little bit more of, like, what people here would be worried about. And actually, since I rewrote it, like, that version of it has that even more so. Because I brought in, like, my experiences being kind of like it wasn't really a magnet program, but I was in high school. I was in like a program for smart kids, so which I don't.
Those will fuck you up.
Or like slowly integrated you back into like normal high school, And like that experience I know is not part of like growing up in Asia, where they like test you into places and
Yes,
stuff like
right,
that.
right, exactly.
So I was like able to bring that into it, and I think that would be really fun to explore if it gets made.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's not AAPI Heritage Month anymore, but it's never a bad time to produce and invest in projects that gear towards America's fastest rising population group.
Yeah.
It's a good demographic to make content for. And there's a brilliant pilot, so you should reach out to Jess and check out the pilot and maybe produce the rest of this series. What a crazy thought. I really like believe in this project. Like, it's really cool. And I think like it's like, think of it as like an adapted sort of Elite kind of thing, but like meant for an Asian American audience with, you know, specific interests and different talent. And
Well, what's been really sticking out to me though is especially when I've taken it on the road for like festivals and stuff, is the sheer number of people who aren't Asian Americans who have connected to it, or who really enjoy it, or who have never even seen an Asian drama and watched it and were like, what happens next? I want to know what happens next. I'm like, I'm sorry, we only have one episode.
I mean, I think like that's also something that's really great too about the world that we're coming into, that I really enjoy, is that like, you know, I've seen Elite. I don't speak Spanish. I didn't grow up. Like, I that environment is completely foreign to me. But like, these stories are fascinating to me, right?
Becoming more open to foreign stories.
Exactly.
Even
and
though
like,
we're Americans, so technically it's not foreign stories.
Right. Well, yeah, but you know, we won't get into the perpetual foreigner situation. But this is a show that can help mitigate that. So.
I mean, honestly, the first time, because the first festival that accepted it was the Mixed Asian Media Fest. Thank you so much for selecting us for their inaugural festival. Yeah, and then like the next one I think was like the International Women's one, and like for that one that was the first time where I actually like almost cried at acceptance, because I wasn't necessarily expecting. I thought we were so niche that only like the Asian American ones might accept us, you know? And I was like really surprised when like it was that one, the International Women's one, then it became like First Glance, which is even
there's now been several like general ones, right?
More general ones. Yeah, U-Fest one where we won Best Series Pilot, and then also Lighthouse accepted us. Shout out to the Lighthouse International Film Festival's episodic program.
Yeah.
Where it was like I think I watched it. I watched the entire episodics lineup, and none of them were like, we weren't competing with other Asian Americans. They put us in with everyone else.
That's how it should be. I think like you evaluate the content based on what it is.
Yeah. Instead of being relegated to your little corner.
Right, exactly.
Although what was really cute though was that at the Lighthouse Festival, the director Yukinori Makabe he did this feature-length film from Japan called like Love and Goldfish or something like that. But like he came from Japan to do the festival.
Yeah.
And his film actually won, I think, both the best audience reaction reward for like feature, like the audience liked them the best, and then I think he also won like an honorable mention from the jury for his film. So the film's really fun. It's like a J-pop musical. But he like came up to me afterwards and was just like, my wife loves Hana Yoridango, which is the main drama that's based on. He was like, my wife loves that show. I can see what you're going for. And I was like, yay!
Yeah, and I think that's great. And like, you know, that is what art is, right? It's like, you know, you're always building on what's come before. And like to have this, like, it's an adaptation, but it's also a modernization, and it's also a relocation of it. And it's like a re-embodiment of the structure of this story with like new characters and new events and new concerns. And I think like that is a real recipe for success. You know what I mean? But
I also really believe in everyone who worked on it, including especially our wonderful like main 4 people cast. Like, Young might be getting too big for us, but like
if we get enough money, we could probably come back to us, Young. Pull him back in.
I don't know if you remember this comment I've made to you, maybe like at this point, at least 1 or 2 years ago. At this point, where I told you I was like, I don't know if you've ever heard anyone tell you this before, but like I really believe in you as a leading man.
I do remember this.
And I think you do so really well, and I really believe in you.
Yeah. No, yes, I of course remember that, because no one else tells you that in this industry. No, I mean it's I appreciate you saying that for sure, especially as someone who's like written and watched me behind the camera and like
And now I've seen you do sort of comedy, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he will now be appearing in Please Help
Please
episode
help.
3.
As in, please help us fund Drama High. But yeah, no, I mean, that's a compliment that I don't take lightly. So.
Yeah, and I think over the course of my friendship with you, it's like I feel like I see you grow and do cooler things, and I still fully believe that. And I'm always very grateful that you're willing to come back and do stuff with me.
I mean, of course, I would, any time, honestly, any opportunity. Yeah, it's just great to work with you, and yeah, any sort of fun or interesting or a project that keeps 5 people's jobs afloat, you know, whatever whatever we need to do. But no, really, I was really glad you reached out, and
Also, I did want to ask you about like what you're hoping to do in the future, like what kind of things would you like to do, where you see yourself in 5 years.
5 years, 5 Oscars, what do you think? Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, stuff like Drama High, honestly. I mean, content that is inspired, that people are passionate about, characters that are interesting, that are nuanced, that have levels of depth to them, and that undergo difficult transformations. I think those are challenging for actors, because you might key into some part of who a character is, but when that character goes through a challenging transformation, you have to go through that too. You have to figure out what that looks like in the world of this character, you know? Comedies, dramas, I mean, I love them all, but like, yeah, projects that are...
Not all Asian American starring projects are the same either. You
know? No, certainly not.
So there are very different bents on what people highlight or do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's film, TV, but I've also been recently auditioning for a lot of theater, and I have I have like a set of things that I really like. There's like 4 plays that I must do at some point in my life. I don't know if I want to jinx by saying what they are, but yeah. So the theater is definitely a huge part of what it's a huge part of the goals I have as an actor. It's different from film and TV. It's more alive. There's something genuinely sort of magical about. Yeah, and it's this like so many theorists have written through this, and written their like fingers off about this. But like, you know, there's something really amazing about existing in the same room, in the same space as your audience, as a person who's a different person, and you are interacting with them, and they are interacting with you as this other character, and the full acceptance that is what's happening here, and the full like buying into what's happening here on stage as an actual life, as an actual event. And yet like the audience inevitably shapes what happens on stage anyway, even if, you know, just by being there, just by, it's like, yeah, it's like quantum physics, right? It's like the what is it? The double slit experiment. Like,
I don't know enough about science for this.
Fair enough. There is a quantum physics experiment where if you are not observing the experiment, one thing happens. But if you are observing the experiment, if you are watching it, something completely different happens. It's amazing. And no one, I don't think anyone quite understands why having a viewer of any kind fundamentally alters what happens on a physical level. It can be a camera, it could be a person, it could be, you know, however you are observing it changes what's happening. And I think like in theater there is a sense of like being observed changes this, and the people observing it change it every night, and like that's amazing. And that's like there's a life to it. There's like it's like it's more than life. Yeah, there's like I'm losing the words here, but I mean, film, TV is amazing too, and I think like its ability to like capture everyone at their very best, everyone in this project at their very best work, like and accepting that someone's very best is who they are. Like I think that's an amazing way to look at life. We're all like obsessed with like finding the worst thing people have ever done, especially in this generation. Like here's the worst thing Kevin Hart's ever said on Twitter. Here's the worst, you know what I mean? Like, and I think like, okay, you know, why not, for the vast majority of people who have not committed heinous crimes, who are growing and learning and were young and are now better people, why don't we take them at their best and say, hey, maybe Kevin Hart is the best version of himself. He's the version of himself that, like, gives to the world and is kind and, like, inspiring and exactly. And, like, maybe that's the version of him we should look at. And I think, like, on film, there's this, you can do that, it's the actor's best take of all 95 takes, and the lighting person's best lighting with like the luck of the weather and the best sound and the best staging, and everything is the very best version of it. And I think that's also fantastic, and that's the version that lives on. You can watch it a million times and it will always be the best version of this show, or of this of all these people's work. So that's wonderful too. All of this is to say, like, cast me in anything, but anything that, like, is written with purpose and, like, and you get to work with people who really care.
Like, what is your advice for any up and coming film actors?
Don't do anything I did. I don't know. Oof.
Like,
I am up and coming film actor, sort of up, at least. I don't know if I'm coming, but, like, trying.
Someone who's just
getting I guess, like, honestly, no opportunity is too small. No job is not worth doing. And also just accept the fact that at every given moment you are the worst actor you will ever be.
Oh goodness.
I'm the worst actor I will ever be from now on until I die. I hope, unless I get worse, which that's really grim. You're the worst actor you'll ever be now, and that's awesome, right? Because that means this is as bad as it gets for you. And also, like, just accept that, like, how you do now on any given project is not a reflection of your innate and permanent ability.
It's just this shot.
Yeah, it's this moment, and it's the beginning of your career. Because if I'm giving you advice, then you're really just starting out. You will only get better from where you are now, and, like, give yourself the grace and to accept that, right?
And to try and fail.
And be excited about that. Be excited about the fact that, like, do your best now, and you will only get better.
Yeah.
Like, that's great, especially if you think you're okay now, which. Hopefully you do.
Trying. This path is very hard.
Don't get down on yourself because you're like, hey, I'm not turning in an Oscar-worthy performance right now. No one in the history of humanity has ever turned in an Oscar-worthy performance in the beginning of their
career.
It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Even if you think it was the beginning of someone's career, I promise you it wasn't. That's the other thing, is that no one makes it overnight.
Yep.
Seriously. Everyone you think made it overnight has probably put in, like, 30 years of work, or at least, like, if they made it as kids, like, it's been a journey for everyone. So be kind to yourself and believe that you will only get better.
Yeah.
That's probably the advice I give.
think that's a lovely set of advice to give.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
This is Jess from Enstarz, and
this is... I'm Jordan Mahr.
Thank you so much for
Not from Enstarz. Enstarz, which will, of course, soon be thriving after you all subscribe to this YouTube channel. Because if you don't subscribe, all the lovely people you've seen, as you know, on the channel, will lose their jobs. So subscribe, and get everyone else in your life to subscribe, because...
You just have you do this Please Help commercial.
Like, honestly, like, it is hard enough to try to be a writer or an actor in this world, and if you have to do that without a day job, you don't want to put any of them through this. What does a subscription cost you? Nothing.
Do it.
You don't even, like, do you even use their subscriptions anymore? I mean, these days, like, YouTube just recommends you things to watch, right? When's the last time you went to the subscription? So, like, even if you don't like the content, like, you won't have to watch it. And if you do like the content, you should definitely subscribe. So for all of these reasons,
on there.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as these guys are behind the camera, it'll continue to be great content. So, give it a subscribe, and get your mom to subscribe too. Yeah, we'll get to 5,000. We'll get you guys here. You'll keep these lovely people employed. It'll be good.
Well, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, right. It's been good. It's been fun. Fabulous.